Chloe, it is so good to see you looking good today, girl. You got your hair straightened, all fine. You got a hot date tonight, girl?
No. I get my hair cut like every few months, and so I get it straightened, and I do my little length check. So you can see COVID has been very good to my hair.
Very much so. You got to tell somebody the secret how to get it to grow like that. For those of you that can't see Chloe, she has straightened her hair. She generally wears it curly. So I pretty much only know curly hair Chloe. But when she decides to go straight, it's like a whole new, it's like Clonesta. We are at the top of the show, and we have to start it out with our trends, taxes, and tea. If you all have not listened to an episode yet, we are giving you the tea on the latest trends and trying to put in a few tidbits here and there that can save you some money on taxes. Chloe, for trends, taxes, and tea today, I wanted to know if you heard about Calendly. You know the scheduling app?
Yes, I did. So Calendly, the scheduling app, they raised $350 million in their latest round of funding, putting them in what's called unicorn territory for startups. Now, this is a big deal because, drum roll, a lot of people do not know that the owner of Calendly is Black. So,
what?
Yes. He's based out of Atlanta, or Calendly's based out of Atlanta. So I've known that he was Black for a while, but I think a lot of people, just had no clue that was the case. And so it's a really big deal for not only for a Black startup to raise that kind of money, but also to be valued at $3 billion. And so
billion with the B, right?
Yeah, with the B. But just to give you a little perspective, when I say unicorn status, in venture capitalism, a unicorn company is a private company or private-owned startup that has a valuation of $1 billion or more. And this is so rare for Black startups because less than 1% of venture capital is invested in Black businesses each year. So it's extremely rare for somebody to even raise $100 million like in total over several rounds, let alone 350 in one round.
So that tells you this has to be a really good app. I know I am a Calendly user, and I was actually just hyping it up the other day because they have this cool feature where you can send somebody like a one-time link. So it's like people kind of get abusive sometimes with using your calendar. Like, oh, I could just like click this link and I'll be on her calendar. And it's like, you can click this link once. So I'm just speaking of the features. And I think that's the reason they're probably valued at $1 billion because look at what a cool feature they have.
Yeah. But yeah, this is really big, especially like in the Black, startup and tech community for sure.
All right, let's get to our main topic for the day. As we were just talking about a business, so many people are ready to start their own business, and we've got to think about like, what should we do before we start this business? It's all the rave, especially in light of the pandemic. A lot of people decided, I don't want to work for the man anymore. The man fired me during the pandemic. I don't want somebody else to be in control of my future. But I think before you start a business, we have to think about like what exactly it is that you need to do to be ready so that you have the best chance of success. And I think we should talk about that today. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I've talked to people all the time who want to start a business, whether it's a little side hustle or, people who want to just quit their jobs and start over with the business. So there are a lot of things to think about. There's a lot of mistakes that you can make. So we definitely want to cover some of those things today.
And of course, we want to bring you the real. So information that is credible, reliable, and we're just going to start out by even just giving some stats. So according to several studies, between 80 and 90% of small business owners make less than $100,000 per year. So I think that right out the gate tells you that while people are running off and starting their own businesses, not everybody is getting, and not everybody, most people are not getting rich and are not becoming 6-figure or 7-figure earners because of the business that they started.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, only about 20% of small businesses fail, within the first year. By the end of the 5th year, about 50% fail. And so, there's different reasons why businesses fail, but, and of course, depending on the industry, the failure rate could be a lot, higher. So I'd say generally speaking, what we see, the biggest reason businesses fail is because they have cash flow problems. if you're a business owner, especially starting out as a solo business owner, you have to pay your bills, you have to pay your living expenses, and you have to pay the expenses of the business. And so if you don't have enough money coming in to cover those things, then you 9 times out of 10 will fail.
Yeah. And I think it gives you a whole new appreciation if you do decide to become a business owner of all the expenses that exist behind the scenes. So when you earn your paycheck as an employee, you get to bring home, this amount for you, but the company had to earn a lot more than that to pay you, to pay the other employees, to cover office expenses, et cetera. And it's one of the things that I think is most often taken for granted as people go off to start their business is they realize like, I need to earn an income, but every dollar that comes in is not my income. It has to go to covering some of the other things. So I think we should start by just kind of talking about some of the common mistakes that people make. I'll say too, some of the things we think of when we think of small businesses, are the ones that are really popular. So in restaurants, retail stores, those kinds of things people really want to start up. And then there's kind of like, I started my own Etsy store sort of deal. But we first need to think about like, before you go off and start this big thing, which is a restaurant, what should you be thinking of? And let's talk about some of the common mistakes that people make.
Yeah, definitely. The first mistake is just not understanding what's involved in starting a business. People have no clue what it takes to run a business, especially if you're solo and you're starting out by yourself.
Yeah, I just gave that restaurant example as something that's really popular. A lot of people are like, oh, your food is so good, you should go, start a restaurant. But being a good cook does not make you a good business owner. So that makes you a really good technician. You know how to do this one thing really well, but you may not know how to do all the other things that will, turn this into a profitable business really well. And a book that people frequently turn to that kind of illustrates that point is called The E-Myth. So in The E-Myth, the young lady is really good at baking pies. She opens a bakery and the pies are amazing, but what about the lease? What about the people that need to be paid? What about the light bill, et cetera, so on and so forth. So just because you're a good technician doesn't necessarily make you a good business owner.
Yeah, and I can speak to that personally. I'm an amazing technician when it comes to financial planning, but I don't necessarily like all the other aspects of running the business. So I've had to learn those things, and it's been a steep learning curve over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wear a bunch of hats as the business owner. So there's the marketing hat to actually get people through the door, decide that this product is something that is necessary. So, I mean, the first thing before you can even market the product is, does anybody even want this product? Yeah. Is there a gap that exists that's going to make people want to purchase this thing that you have? And then once you go through there, it's like accounting and compliance. And, with us as financial planning firms, we have a lot of regulation that we have to be mindful of and stay on top of to make sure that, they know we're not doing anything shady and everything is like A-okay. So it's not just this one thing that we're good at, helping people organize their finances, but it's also all these other things that we have to be proficient at in order to run a successful business.
Yeah, we wear a lot of different hats. It's funny sometimes when I speak with students or people, who are younger and they want to start a business someday, they're just like, oh, do you just meet with clients every day and then you're done? And I'm like, honey, no, I'm the marketing person. I'm the bookkeeper. I'm the janitor. Like I'm the personal assistant. Like I do everything. So.
Right. The prep before the meeting, the prep after the meeting, the follow-up after the meeting.
Yeah, all the things. So yeah, it's a lot of work. And you really do, like Lauren said, you have to think about, is there really a market out there for your business, whether you have a service or a product? Is there really a market out there? And, if sales and marketing are the most important things in your businesses, you can be the best at what you do. You can have the best product, the best quality product out there. But if you don't have clients, you don't have a business.
I think that's pretty well said. Like, no one's coming through the door. Your doors can be open, but you've got bills, not a business in that regard. Yeah. So I think the other thing too is like thinking about your own benefits. So when you have a employer, you have some life insurance, maybe you have some disability insurance, some health insurance. There's a 401k or 403b that you'll have access to. And sometimes you don't realize that that's a part of what you have to do in order to be a business owner. So you have to go out and find your own health insurance. And health insurance is not cheap as an entrepreneur. Let me just tell you. Woo.
Yeah, and it's crappy.
Exactly. You pay a lot to get a little.
Yeah.
And disability insurance, like you now are the business. So now more than ever, this is going to be a really important part of the process, because if you're unable to work, you are unable to earn. So you don't want to skip over that step. Life insurance is another one. There's like usually group life that gives you, a pretty good amount. Should you become or should you kick the bucket at an employer? Well, you got to go out and find that proper life insurance. Then you need like insurance for whatever kind of business you're running. Like Chloe and I, we need E&O insurance, so errors and omissions, to run the business. And then retirement. We are all trying to earn a living to save up so that someday we don't have to work anymore and we can live off what we earned. Well, if you don't have a retirement plan, where are you going to put those dollars? It's not an easy automated thing that you just, log into a portal and say 8% out of my paycheck. Now you actually have to set up that account, get those things rolling and manage it.
And more important than that, you have to get it to the point where you can set up a paycheck.
Right. Which is so real. Like as an entrepreneur who is 4 years into running a business, that is a very real thing. You can take what we call distributions and take little small amounts here and there, or you can, like you said, get set up on a proper paycheck, knowing that you have the stability to be able to cover that proper paycheck. So, I mean, like you said, we're always all about being transparent. I am just getting to a point where I'm taking a regular paycheck from my business. 4 years in, people, 4 years, which leads to our next point. I think that you need to have your financial house in order to jump off the ledge and decide you want to be a business owner.
Yeah. And I always think about, building a business kind of like building a house. Like when people have a new house that they build, they always tell you it's going to take twice as long. It's going to cost twice as much money. And it's very similar with the business. You think, oh, like it's not going to cost that much to get set up, or, I can kind of float, my expenses for a little while until it becomes profitable. But it usually takes about twice as long as you think it will. Like Lauryn and I said, we've both been in business for about 4 years. It takes 3 to 5 years typically to get to the point where you can replace your old paycheck.
Yeah, and I think you just need to be mindful of like what choices you're willing to make in order to be your own boss. There's this really cool cliche out there. I think it's cool, at least, that says entrepreneurs are willing to work an 80-hour week so that they don't have to work 40 hours for someone else. Yeah. That's not our goal and mission and vision in life. We're not trying to make that a long-term thing. But that is what it's going to take in order for you to, get to the point of, okay, this thing is up, it's running, and it's going to pay me in a way that it's going to pay me back for the investment that I've made over the last few years while I got this thing profitable.
Yeah. And if you're not passionate about what you do, or the purpose behind why you're doing it, and you're just trying to, get rich quick, or just trying to make a quick buck, you're probably not going to last long enough for it to actually, get successful and for you to see it through.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say too is to think about your debt, because that is one thing that a lot of people don't really spend a lot of time on. It's like, I got some, personal debt here because I don't have any large capital built up. I'm going to need to take out loans for this business. And you really got to think about, okay, is my debt under control? So that means credit card debt free, in my opinion, before you decide to start this business, or before you decide to leave your 9-to-5 to become a full-time business owner. And then do you need seed money to cover, these like startup costs or initial ongoing expenses? If you do, then you're going to have to go out and ask for that money. And they're going to want to see, your financials to say, are you a relatively safe risk for us to take? And should we loan you this money? And at what rate should we do so? Because you can end up with a really expensive loan, or you can end up with some money that, comes with an investment in you and returning back to the person who's decided to hand that money over. So you got to really think about like where you're willing to put your dollars and where you're willing to take dollars from. But you first need to make sure that you have the best scenario where you have some skin in the game.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with having skin in the game. A lot of people start businesses and they want to immediately just go out and borrow everything. And, even in the startup world, it's very trendy and sexy to go raise money, and everybody gets excited when you raise all this money. But I mean, people who've raised money will tell you like it's not as exciting as it sounds. Like we're pretty much owned by other people, and we're accountable to those other people. So So yeah, I mean, if you can start a business with your own savings, kind of, bootstrap it for a little bit, keep your startup costs low, get to the point where you feel, like you're profitable and you can kind of ask for more, and when you're getting loans, or you can get to the point where you don't have to give up so much ownership in your business.
Yeah, it's one of those, like you said, popular cliches that I don't like is that, make money with other people's money. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just arbitrage and do all these different things. And I'm going to just use other people's money to make my money. And that's kind of the mindset from the very beginning, is that I'm not going to ever put any skin in the game. I'm just doing this to, use somebody else's money. And that's not usually the strategy for creating the best business. Like, yes, you may need someone else's money to get your thing going, but the idea and the mindset and the way that you're verbalizing that, like I'm not going to invest in this thing, I'm going to use somebody else's thing and let them take all the risk, is probably a sign that you're probably not in the best financial shape in the first place. The other thing I would say too is to get an emergency savings. So you have to have some emergency savings, because inevitably in business, things are not going to go exactly as planned. So you may not get up and off the ground as quickly as you thought you were. Something may happen where, a pandemic, for example, causes you to close your doors for a good period of time. So you need to have money, especially as you're getting started, to cover your own personal expenses. Because what if the business doesn't make any money or doesn't give you any money to be able to pay yourself initially? So a big emergency fund with a long runway would be a really ideal thing to do as you get your financial house in order.
Exactly. And, again, just going back to the, keeping your costs down, a lot of people want to start brick and mortar businesses or franchises. Those things cost a lot of money up front, like there's startup costs and there's ongoing costs to run the business. And so you have to think about, what are those startup costs going to be? Can you save up that money in addition to your emergency fund? And then, what are those ongoing expenses going to be? And can you make enough income to at least cover those expenses, so you're not having to dip into your emergency fund for those expenses in addition to your living expenses? But, just as an example, if you have a building and you're taking out a lease, you might have to renovate the building to outfit it for a restaurant or for a store. That's going to cost money. And you have to hire staff, potentially. So you might be in a situation where you're $5,000 or $6,000 a month that, in expenses on a monthly basis. And you have to make that much just to break even.
You know what this reminds me of? A conversation we had just 2 weeks ago where we were talking about home purchases and how it wasn't just let me get enough money to get a down payment. It's like, let me think about a proper emergency fund, getting rid of my credit card debt, getting a proper down payment, and I know I'm going to want to furnish the house once I get in it. I think so often we kind of laser focus on like this one thing that we want to do, that we don't think about all the other costs that are associated with that thing.
Definitely. And I'd say too, just try to get professional help, whether you're just, you just have your idea and you're just starting the business, or if you're already in your business, make sure you have a good team of people who can help you and give you solid advice. You need a bookkeeper who can help you with your books and make sure that you keep your books up to date. You need an accountant, someone can help you, kind of plan for taxes, make sure that you're paying, if you need to make estimated tax payments, and just kind of prepare for taxes that you're going to owe on the business. And so that bookkeeper and accountant need to work closely together to make sure that you don't get behind and you're not, owing the IRS every year and getting on loan payments and kind of starting this cycle of debt to the IRS. Another thing too, just, talk to an attorney. Like there's a lot of misinformation about the type of business that you should set up, and what type of business makes sense. There's a difference between the business entity and the tax election. So just understanding those things is super important, so you don't make costly mistakes as you're setting up your business.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times someone has reached out and said that they started a business to save themselves money on taxes, and not realizing that the setup of their business was not saving them a penny on taxes. Are there ways to, use tax strategies more efficiently because you have a business? Yes. But simply having a business does not presto chango make you save money on taxes. So the entity that you set up and the way that those entities work is a very important thing. thing. And I also wanted to circle back to when you talked about like getting a bookkeeper and accountant. Like, to me, these are not optional things. These are not, maybe I'll get one, maybe I'll add it. It's not an accessory, it's a necessity. You absolutely need a bookkeeper and accountant. And the thing I would say is, like, yes, you want to keep costs low as you start a business. Yes, there are apps and things that people are using to do their own bookkeeping, but what is your time worth? Are you an expert in this area? If you're going to keep your own books to save $1 and you're not exactly sure how to do bookkeeping, you mess things up. The accountant gets the wrong information, and now taxes is not done properly in the most, tax efficient way. So these two people who are experts at this thing, because we know that taxes is real and you don't want to end up owing, they can help you get a strategy in place. Like, here's what you actually need to be getting set up to save, set aside so that you don't owe Uncle Sam money, because that happens frequently with small businesses. They start to do really well and they forget to save money for taxes, and now they're getting hit with a big tax liability when it's all said and done.
That's a good segue into our next thing we want to talk about: starting a business for the wrong reasons. Like Lauren said, a business is not an automatic tax write-off. And something that a lot of people don't understand. If you're writing off a bunch of losses from year to year, your business isn't making money. Bottom line. We've said it so many times, like, if you pay taxes, that means you made money.
Exactly. And I would just say too that, the pandemic is yet another example. I know I keep bringing it up, but the PPP loan came last year, and so many people were independent LLCs or sole proprietors, and they're so used to, like, let me just write all the things off, that they had no way to show a profit, and were then ineligible for the PPP loan. So much needed money could not get into their hands because the process, said, hey, show us your profit and we'll give you 2.5 times that. And you weren't able to get it. So these are the things where it's like, okay, I'm cheating the man, or I'm trying to work the system, game the system. But really, you should be really excited to make money. And like you said, not write everything off.
Yeah. And even beyond business loans, I mean, think about just qualifying for a house. If you do want to purchase a house, when you're self-employed, you have to show a lot more paperwork. And so, I mean, if you want to get a car or any other type of loan, for anything that you want to buy, any goals that you have to have income to qualify for those things.
One of the other things I think we should talk about is scams. We just kind of talked about the pandemic and how people were trying to, maybe get access to funds and not able to. But like I said, in the same vein, they might have, somebody been scamming them, doing write-offs on their taxes that maybe weren't necessary. There's all kinds of other scams that exist out there. And I think we need to talk about, like, not falling prey to scams or trends or things like that could make you end up in trouble. So what do you think, Chloe?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that Lauryn and I hear. We talk to people all the time, and and it's there's some really bad scams out there. And I think if you, especially in our community and in communities of color, we really do want to succeed. We want to make a lot of money. We want to be successful in our careers or in our businesses, and sometimes we fall prey to some of these scams. I'd say the first thing is just be cautious. If you have to spend, tens of thousands of dollars, like, to invest in some company that's going to help you, build a business, or if you're having to spend thousands of dollars on courses on, how to get rich or how to build this, extremely profitable business, just do a little research and make sure those people are legitimate, and that your money's actually going towards something good.
Yeah. And I would say too, like you said, as we think about doing research, find the information. So like .gov websites are, more legitimate. So IRS website, if you're trying to learn something about something related to money, it's pretty much always there. But like the kind of quick blog that you find, I'd be leery of, because they usually have links all through them, leading you to somewhere else, trying to get you to purchase this thing or that. They may provide you with some information to kind of get you going. But once you kind of educate yourself, keep looking until you can find that information from a more reliable source and it says the same thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll give you a good example too, just so you can have some context about what we're talking about. There are companies out there. I mean, you think about, like the fast food chains, or like, some of the restaurants, or even, I mean, there's gyms, that are franchises across the country. I mean, there's really kind of, well-known, respectable, franchises that you can invest in. The ones that are well-known and well-respected are going to cost well into the six figures typically to start. But I mean, there are some people out there that say, okay, give me a $20,000 finder's fee, and I'm going to help you find a franchise to buy. And so you pay this person, some tens of thousands of dollars. Like
These are real things, y'all. Real things that people are doing.
Yeah, and they help you find a location. Like they scout out a location for you, and they kind of help you with the process of starting the business and negotiating the lease and getting all the equipment and all the things that you need. But that money that you're paying them is usually just for them to help you find the location and do all the initial startup stuff. You still have to come out of pocket and potentially take out a loan, sometimes in the six figures, to, like I said, outfit that location. If you're starting a smoothie shop or a restaurant, you have to buy all of the equipment. You have to renovate the whole space. That costs a lot of money. And so a lot of times people don't understand what they're getting into. They're thinking, oh, I can just invest this little amount here, and then I'm going to have a business, and they'll tell you how much you can potentially make on a monthly basis, but they're not showing you all the numbers. And a lot of times you might not understand what all the numbers look like.
Yeah. So do not borrow from your 401k because you did not have the initial money and say, "Ooh, this is only 20,000 of the 100,000 I've saved up so far. This is going to be great. I'm going to just flip my money overnight." And now you're $20,000 out of your 401k. You need to repay that amount. And you still don't have that business. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And, like I said, once again, if you're borrowing from your 401k, please proceed to the previous 5 minutes of the podcast where we talked about getting your financial house in order. You don't want to take away from a retirement fund that you already have that's working on your behalf in order to be able to pursue something that's supposed to just, turn magical overnight.
Yeah. And I'll repeat this too, just, like brick and mortar businesses cost a lot of money to run. So if you can start, if it's like Lauryn and I have virtual businesses, we don't pay for office space. Our businesses are highly profitable because we don't have all the overhead associated with paying for an office and just paying for all these things that most traditional businesses have to pay for. So if you have a skill set that you can monetize, if you can do consulting, if there's something that you can do virtually, and you don't have to set up, the big building or rent big office space or have all of this equipment to start, just try to start small, and then eventually you can build your way up to having those bigger things that cost a little bit more in the long run.
Yes. Let's go over some of the things that I can think of. I'm thinking of all the schemes that have happened in the past, like the Fire Festival. Do you remember that?
Yeah. And actually I just watched the documentary on the Fire Festival on Netflix. It was because I'd always heard about it, but I never knew the details of what happened. But yeah, it was really interesting that, this scam artist of a guy, he had all these connections, and had the appearance that he was very successful, and he scammed a lot of people out of money for this festival, this music festival that never happened. Right. And just recently, I think it was last week actually, there was a similar thing that happened with vaccines. I don't know if you heard about it in the news.
No, tell us. This is a new tea. Tell us.
Yeah, there's some extra tea for you. But yeah, there was a guy, I think he was in his early 20s, and so and I can't remember the state, but he was saying, he basically went to the state and was saying that he could set up a site and do vaccines, and he could vaccinate, all these people. And he had a pretty PowerPoint presentation. He had all the logistics, and everybody thought he knew what he was talking about. So he had no medical background. I think he was a tech guy, actually. So the government actually trusted him. They gave him, all these vaccines. They gave him resources. He set up a location. All these poor elderly people signed up to get vaccines. And these healthcare workers signed up to get vaccines, and it didn't happen the way it was supposed to happen. Wow. People were waiting. They didn't get vaccinated. It was a huge, a huge deal. And so it ended up kind of being a scam. He ended up vaccinating some of his friends. It was pretty bad.
I got the hookup, y'all. I got these vaccines over here for $3 in the like.
But yeah, I mean, and someone actually compared it. They said it was like the fire festival for vaccination.
Right.
But again, marketing and sales, it can help your business, and that's the lifeblood of your business. But it can also, get you scammed.
Right. So be careful. Be careful.
Yeah.
All right. So let's, on a lighter, more positive note, talk about some of the things you can do if you want to start a business. So I think the first thing we need to do if you're interested in starting a business is just be real. Be real with yourself, have a sit down kind of reflection moment, and don't get caught up in the, Friday night having fun with friends. Ooh, you bake really good pies, go start your pie business. And before you know it, you're off and running without having really thought through whether or not you want to bake pies for the rest of your life. And then after you decide, okay, yes, I do want a business. What kind of business do you want? A lifestyle business? Do you want to build an empire? I think we kind of think like, oh, we're going to make lots of money, so we have to build an empire, but it's not necessarily true. There are tons of small businesses across the country. And like we said earlier, we gave you the statistic of most of them not earning more than $100,000 a year. I think something like 90% of them are not earning six figures. So it's a regular, normal kind of income that you can afford, and get a nice lifestyle from it. But it's simply being your own boss doesn't automatically mean wealth, tons of money, and that you have to build an empire. You can build something small, create the work-life balance that you want, and also have a reasonable income with that comes with that flexibility.
But yeah, just being real with yourself and understanding kind of what you want. How does this business fit into your lifestyle? How does it help you reach your goals? That will drive your decisions that you make around the business and how you plan out the business.
Mm-hmm. We always tell people as it pertains to their budget, does your spending align with your values? And so it's the same sort of thing when setting up a business. If you have a clear goal, a clear set of values and things that are driving you toward this next thing, like a purpose. I mean, it's really what it is. Once you understand your purpose and the passion behind it, that'll start to kind of like help things unfold. But you also need to be aware not to, spend so passionately. You want to spend based on, business principles and things like that.
Yeah. And that leads to the next thing, make sure you know your numbers. You can't run on passion alone. So you need to understand, how do your numbers look? The first thing that you have to understand before you even take the leap is know what you need to fund your living expenses. That goes back to the, just basic budget. How much do I have coming in? How much do I have going out? How much needs to go out to cover my essential living expenses that I have to pay each month to survive? Because that's the number that you're going to kind of have to use as a baseline to project everything else.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important too, as you think about that, like I said, 4 years into business, to be real with yourself about other needs for income. So if this is the thing you really want to do, what else can you do to kind of fuel this passion and this dream? For me, I've had multiple side hustles the whole time. So I had other means of income so that I could afford to watch this grow in the way that I wanted it to over the 4 years and build it the way that I wanted, because this is for me a lifestyle business. So I wasn't willing to sacrifice what I wanted to build in the way that I wanted to build it, even if it took me a little bit longer. But yeah, it costs. I still got to feed myself over the next 4 years or the last 4 years while things were starting to grow. So you have to really understand what you can live off of and then what choices you're willing to make. A lot of people like to use the word sacrifice. I don't like to use the word sacrifice because I really feel like you are making a choice. I can definitely go work at a financial firm now and, probably earn 3 times what I'm getting ready to earn this year. No, we never know. Worth Winning is going to do great this year. 3 times what I earned last year, right? But, what am I giving up to go get those dollars? What is it exactly that I want to do and why is this worth it? And so in light of that information, I don't want to go work at a firm. How am I willing to live in order to make sure that this thing that I am more passionate about does take off and is better than, the place that I probably don't want to go work. So just be thinking about those things.
Yeah, and I mean, the same thing with me. I had a little side hustle. You know, sometimes you might be fortunate to have a spouse with stable income who can help you,
Mm-hmm.
or you might, if you are one of those people who was able to save up a lot of money, you could cover your living expenses for a couple of years without worrying about it. But if you don't, you really need to transition into the business. And so, for me, I did quit my job, which like I said in my first episode with Lauren, I don't recommend. but but when I did quit my job, I had something else, that kind of fell into my lap pretty quickly, and I had some steady income coming in. So I was able to kind of, work to, like a side hustle that gave me some income enough to cover my bills. And I built my business slowly. I was only working about 40% in my business at that time. And I had to slowly work my way up to 100%, which I am now, and kind of, back off the side hustle over time. But, that's a sacrifice I had to make. And I knew that my business was going to grow a little bit slower as a result. But, that's what I needed to do to pay my bills. So.
One thing I just thought of that we didn't talk about was like business versus personal. So we're kind of talking about it now, having your personal expenses, understanding what that is, having savings for it. But then there's also this business bucket. So separating your business accounts and your business money from your personal money. Because like I said, a lot of times if we're not, seasoned business owners, we're like, it's all one and the same. Like I'm out here selling this, these plates on Saturday night and this money goes into my bank account and then I spend it. You don't know what you spent to cook the food. You don't know what you spent, for Tupperware to be able to give it to people. And then it kind of gets your money kind of all mixed up because you're like, oh, I just have more money in my bank account. I can go spend it now. You definitely from the very beginning should try to separate business from personal. And you should even, go so far as to set up a business account. This goes back to that whole entity thing, understanding what entity is best for you, et cetera. But having a business bank account and a personal bank account and being able to account for your business expenses versus your personal expenses from the very beginning, I think is a really key thing that we need to add to this list.
Yeah, and it's super important for a couple of reasons. I mean, like Lauren said, you do want to know, is my business profitable? You need to run those, key numbers to figure out, where's the revenue coming from, or where are the expenses coming from, and how can I use those to help project, the growth in future years, or things that I might need to change to tweak my business to make it better. So that's super important. And it's also a liability issue. The purpose of setting up these entities is to protect your personal assets. So if someone, if you have an LLC, for example, if someone tries to sue your business or come after you because of something that you did wrong in your business, that protects you from them coming to take your personal assets. If you're commingling all that money, if you're mixing in business and personal, then you might as well just not have an LLC, or you might as well not have a business entity, because you really kind of broke that corporate structure, and broke that protection.
Don't let them get you. Don't let them get you.
Yeah. And then I'd say too, another thing to think about is, people always think about failing with a business. And this goes back to making sure that you don't dig yourself in a hole. You're not taking out all these loans and doing all these, bad things and mismanaging your money. But, the worst case scenario for Lauryn and I, we knew we were financial planners. We started our firms, and, it's like, okay, if our businesses don't work, we can go get a job as a financial planner. Like, making pretty good money and doing a similar thing. We might not be working for ourselves, but we can always go get a job. Like I mean, when I started my business, I had recruiters reaching out to me on a regular basis on LinkedIn. So it actually makes you more desirable if you've started a business, even if you did fail. Just the fact that you took that risk, that you learned a lot of lessons, you could be a valuable resource to the business, to your clients. So going back and getting a job is not the end of the world. So.
Yeah. Which brings up a good point about knowing when to quit. It is a hard thing to be able to decipher. I'm actually reading a really good book. I forgot the name of it. I'm going to tell you guys later. But it's basically about like this idea of when do you see something through versus when do you quit? And as an entrepreneur, you are going to ride a roller coaster. That is, Chloe and I are on it on a daily basis. Before this podcast today, we talked about like some of the downs and like, whoa, hold on one second. But we're committing to staying on the roller coaster, and we know that there's going to be some upswings, and we're going to be celebrating, in a matter of days. It could be, and actually an email right after this that, has us back on that upswing. So one, be willing to commit to that roller coaster ride that is entrepreneurship, but also, try to be able to decipher like what's a surefire thing that I'm going to say like, okay, this is enough. I'm not going to do this anymore. This is not the best thing for me. I need to go get that job. I need to, pivot into something else, because that's a really good way to end up in a lot of debt and kind of burn your financial future down, is holding on to something that you don't want to continue forward with.
Yeah, or something that's not working. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster. If it's something that, that just maybe takes a little bit more time, if it is working, but it's just a little bit slower than you expect. You have to be committed to building the business, and you will have highs, you will have extreme lows. One of our colleagues actually just says that being an entrepreneur, you have your highest highs and lowest of lows, and sometimes it happens in the same day. So
in the same hour, Lord have mercy.
But yeah, it's definitely an emotional roller coaster. You need to build therapy into your expenses at times, but yeah, I mean, it's something that can be super rewarding if you're willing to stick it out.
For sure. So as we kind of wrap it up, pay off debt, get your emergency fund, find out what the cost is going to be. When you finally get down to the cost, just go ahead and double it, because inevitably it's going to cost more. And then too, when you think about how long it's going to take you to become profitable, I got this, I'm going to be good in 2 years. Go ahead and double it again. Better safe than sorry. And we're passionate, we're ambitious, we want to do all these things. And sometimes you can knock your goal out of the park. Great job when you do, pat yourself on the back, but prepare for the worst and hope for the best is what I like to say.
Yeah. And finally, just make sure that you seek professional help. Get your team together, have an attorney, have an accountant, have your bookkeepers, financial planners, talk to other successful business owners, people who have done what you want to do, and get advice from them. And, if you're getting advice from people, make sure that they understand, where you are, they've been in your shoes, and they've come out on the other side.
I love it. All right, let's wrap it up with our money quote. So today's money quote comes from Shonda Rhimes, a producer who is just wonderful. How to Get Away with Murder is one of the shows that Shonda Rhimes put together, and her book, oh my goodness, The Year of Yes, is amazing. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Chloe, you want to take us away with today's quote?
Sure. Dreams do not come true just because you dream them. It's hard work that makes things happen. It's hard work that creates change.
I love this for so many reasons. I think so frequently we get the dream and we're just like, okay, it's a dream. I'm going to do it. It's a great idea. I'm thinking about it. Simply talking and having the idea come to your head is not what makes the dream a reality. It's the hard work. It's the, behind the scenes that no one sees that is going to actually turn this dream into a reality. And you've got to be ready to do the hard work.
Definitely. And that's not just when it comes to building a business. It's, it's those things like buying a house, buying your dream house, going on a dream vacation, taking a couple of years off of work, retiring early, just all those dreams that you might have. You have to put in the work to make those things happen.
You guys got it, though. You can do it. You can totally make your dreams into reality. That is all we have for you today. So make sure you tune in. This is a series called Know Better, Do Better. We want you all to know better so that you are able to do better. And that starts by getting advice that you can rely on from professionals, doing the research that is necessary. In the next episode, we will be talking about windfalls. So if money comes your way, whether that be a tax return, a bonus at work, hitting the lottery, you name it, big money comes for whatever reason. If you receive some money that is unexpected, how to best handle a windfall. So make sure you tune in so that we can help you understand how to know better so we can do better and achieve our financial dreams.